thought it was a divided country, a divided culture and country, Michael.
Do you, you know, you talk about a divided country, and us growing up, I think we've also experienced a divided country, about some obviously other factors. Was there any similar? This is kind of a broad question, but like, do you kind of see that as like a through line as we've come into the present and there's all these political divides and things like that? Does it feel similar, or was there something different about I don't know, it's a broad question, but was there something different about the Vietnam War divide that made it more maybe like ferocious or contentious in any way?
I have to think about that a minute.
Well,
it seems to me that the divisions that are felt in our society today have a very different feel than the divisions that were around the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War involved not only just a reaction to war, but it was also had to do with a cultural division, symbolized by the hippies, the rejection of everything that the hippies stood for. On the right wing meant also that you were, when you were against the hippies, you were for the war, and vice versa. If you were for the hippies, now that was not always the case. If people were for the hippies, that didn't mean that they were absolutely necessarily against the war, but they tended to be that way. It was a culturally divided society, but culturally divided for different reasons than I think our divisions are today. For example, there was far less racial division involved in society during that time, though it is true that Martin Luther King ended up speaking out against the war. Nevertheless, it didn't really become a dominant part of America's reaction. The racial issue didn't become a dominant part of the reaction to the war. I don't think that's my opinion. I think that racial divisions have become more prominent, if more in a more subtle way, in recent years. Sadly enough. So it is a different world, and I don't see that people reacting to the participation of the country in some kind of warlike endeavor. They're not reacting to it the same way that they did to Vietnam. So, for example, participation in the Iraq War, Afghanistan War, didn't evoke the same kind of emotional reaction that participation in the Vietnam War did. It just seemed to be a different kind of beast, emotionally and societally.
Do you think that there's a kind of something you can point your finger at as a reason for that, or because we've talked about a lot in our class about how the Iraq War and stuff is almost like they refer to it as like the shadow of Vietnam in terms of like kind of following in its footsteps. So do you think that there's a reason for that, or just the times are changing?
Well, I don't know. One thing that's the difference is that during the Vietnam War, there was a draft, and so people could be forced into it whether they wanted to be a part of it or not. That was not true in recent wars. That I think that changes things rather dramatically.
Mhm.
Um, I think also the fact that war in recent wars has become more mechanical and sometimes distance oriented. And when you're sitting around guiding a drone and to attack somebody, or flying in a plane and sending a missile from 20 miles away to something, that's very different from walking through a jungle and being shot by people that you can't see. So
Yeah.
it's a different kind of warfare. And I think all of that enters the picture in
Yeah,
terms of people attitudes.
yeah, it makes sense a little less close to home.